Hey, welcome to Tally the Votes, Australian Survivor Edition, week 6 of season 11. It is merge week in Samoa, and so, in the spirit of such, we're going to make a merge ourselves. So, for tonight's show, we are increasing our tribe's numbers and we are merging with our fellow podcaster, host of Scott Forgot the 80s and serious TV drama. It's our friend and occasional formidable foe, Scott. Welcome, Scott.
I am so pleased to be here. There's nothing I've been wanting to talk about more this week than Australian Survivor. So I'm glad you guys were able to make room for little old me here.
Yes, well, we're
Real,
glad to
real
have
survivor, as I like to call it.
the real survivor. As per usual, I'm Jamie. Except for this week, I'm coming at you from Tony's Spy Shack, and I am here with my co-hosts and cohorts, David and Christy. Hey guys, we have a lot to cover tonight. We have a merge. Two of us lost a final three player, and of course, we've got to talk about it. Mental health check. So I'm gonna start out with Christy. Chrissy, I am certain that you would agree that mental health comes first.
Sure.
But I kind of want to talk about Scotty's exit in the format of what that means for the game that's going forward. So, what, if any, damage do you think this caused his alliance? Or do you think it's helped somebody other than Kitty, obviously?
I think it caused damage to his alliance for sure, because he was going to be loyal, and he was a number for Kirby no matter what. And but then he started having, I don't know, he seemed to be so secure before the merge, right? He wasn't going anywhere. No one ever talked about voting him out. He was on anyone's radar. Really good spot. And he seemed like everybody liked him. They get to merge. He's trying really hard to make these connections, and like, I don't know, he forgot that this was Survivor and it's not, hey, how many friends can I make? And then starts caring too much about Kitty, which was like, dude, what's going on? Like, you have to stick with the game and the strategy that you have, right? And then like, he could not tell her. And that was just ridiculous. And I think once he did that, it was like, he had lots of explaining to do. And at that point, you are so far in the hole, you can't even see the top, and you just don't even have the energy to dig yourself out. And he was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. I effed up, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, it did feel kind of weird. I mean, at least from the story, the perspective that we had, it seemed kind of weird, like he really was just in a great spot and doing fine. Nobody had said his name. He was, working with the right numbers. He seemed to usually be on the right side of the votes, and then suddenly, hey, I'm out. I don't want to do this.
And I think he still would have been fine for a while, honestly.
I feel like he was probably going to be fine for at least 2 or 3 more runs.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah. Scott, there was a lot of chaos that was happening back at camp all the way up until that tribal. But it was weird, right? Because there was all this chaos. There was all these different moves. Everybody was saying everybody's name. And then suddenly we've got Scotty's exit. And it kind of felt a little bit like the final season of Game of Thrones. Like everybody is getting ready to like go to battle, and then so as a writer yourself, I was kind of curious about what you thought of the situation that the editors and the writers of this show would find themselves in. I mean, is there an honest way to conclude that the story they were creating in the episode with any real satisfaction? Do you feel like it's going to open the door to a better story? Or, I mean, I feel like I would be really disappointed if I was a writer that I had to end that story that way.
Well, I tend to agree. Here's the thing. Sometimes you can write it. You can write what seems to be a great story, but you're still going to have a tragic ending, and sometimes those endings are not going to be ultimately that satisfying. I mean, the way they put that episode together, there was a lot of focus on Scotty throughout the episode, how he was feeling and interacting, and when he was basically blowing up everybody's plans, which I was like going, what is going on here? Did someone inject him with a shot of Kelly at some point? Because he was doing these things. And so then when you get to what eventually happened at Tribal, and of course, even when he sets off the bomb of I'm angling to leave, he doesn't do it right from the start of Tribal. Let's let Kitty dig a massive hole for herself. It's like, wait a minute. So just how rich are you? And how vindictive? Now, like, oh, I don't know if you might have had a target before. You've got a big bright neon target on you now. Nicely done, Scotty.
Yeah, then
So-
Tribal went a little Shark Tank for a minute. She was like rattling off her stats and her sales numbers. And
Yes.
So the way I kind of rationalize it being, I don't want to say a satisfying episode, because whenever whatever the reason is, if someone has to quit as opposed to someone being voted out, it's ultimately never going to be that satisfying. And it seemed like a waste, because you had the person who's just going to be there to watch, and like, this is what she gets to watch. This is it. By the way,
Yeah.
one of the lamest rewards I've ever heard. Like, you don't get to vote, but you can just watch.
It's
What?
just like at home when you're watching it on
Yeah.
TV.
Right.
You get to be a spectator.
So what's interesting is, in the same week, and I'm not going to jump ahead to talk about a later episode, but I did find it interesting, from just using the point you're talking about, how they constructed it and put that episode together. And then you have another episode in the same week, which I thought was a brilliant piece of editing, throughout. And I was like going, wow, this is what they're talking about, putting together a well-constructed, edited episode. Even if I didn't ultimately love the result, I can't deny, wow, that was so beautifully put together. I think that was all they could do, because he's leaving. They should at least be happy there were some fireworks before it happened, so at least there was something memorable about it.
That's
But
true.
he just left chaos in his wake. So it was one of the more disastrous quits I've seen in a game. But at least for him, I understood it at least.
Right.
Do you think that maybe they were caught off guard, that not even production was aware that he was slipping, that he was going to do that?
You know
Jenny?
what?
Maybe that's why that they didn't even have anything really like, are we going to?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have the time. I barely have the time in the day to get through the 3 episodes a week, no matter how much I like them. But there was so much about this episode that I found myself thinking about this. So I stopped and I just rewatched the part where we had all of the conversations happening up until Tribal. Because the reason why is because Scott and I had a conversation this last weekend, and we were talking about Survivor, and he asked me, who is it that you feel the most sorry for right now? And for some reason, and I couldn't say why, for some reason I said, Scotty. He's sitting in a great position, but it's like, well, why do I feel that way? So this happened.
well, he was getting an awful edit. I mean, up to
He
that
was-
point, I think
Were
he
they
had
like
one
flashing
confessional.
subliminally things
It's
at us?
almost as if they knew. And so when I went back and I watched the conversations that were happening, there was a few different things to catch. One, at one point, he almost had Alex crying in the background of the conversation. Another time, when he was going over and he was talking to Kitty and he was saying, hey, your name's coming up. They're saying your name. I watched Kirby, who's always watching and interrupting conversation. So I didn't think anything of it when I first watched it, other than it's Kirby being Kirby. But she didn't go over and interrupt and say, hey, stop talking, like our plan, don't do this. She went over and she said, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you all right? Come on, let's go talk life. And she's like, no game, let's just go talk life. And so there's these little moments where you see this and this desire he had to save Kitty told me that something serious in the very short amount of time that they were around each other, they had to have had a real conversation, like a real person, deep bonding conversation for somebody who's been sitting in what we perceive as an excellent position to just hand their game over because they're going to try to protect this person. This isn't like Kelly and Ray. You know, this wasn't like that. Something different was happening, and that's why I was like, "Why is this so weird? What is going on here? Something is weird."
What did they bond over? Do you think? What do you think it
I
was? What was?
I honestly just feel like I think that Scotty probably was having some troubles from the get-go. I feel like I'm not unique in the position of saying that I've known a lot of really amazing, super positive people who are clinically depressed.
Yeah.
And I think Scotty just might be another one of those people that really bear it with a smile and try to stay positive, and that's how they manage their depression. And in a game like Survivor, when you're hungry, you're tired, the wind is blowing, you're leaving one camp and going to another camp, everybody's fighting, your own alliance is disagreeing, it's negativity everywhere around you. And the only solid coping mechanism you have is to be super positive. You're going to have to bail. You can't do it.
Or was he suffering because now his therapist had been kicked out? You know, Kitty, she was a therapist.
It's top-notch therapy.
So yeah, he was not getting any more therapy. It's been one day without Kitty, and he's fallen apart because.
Kelly.
Sorry, Kelly. Sorry. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because I just don't know what someone could say to me in such a short amount of time for me to flush my game like that. I don't know.
I mean, okay, so David, we touched on this a little bit, but it seemed like he got a lot of support in Tribal. Do you think that it was an indication that he truly had been openly struggling, or do you think like it was just make a good appearance, say the right thing for TV? What do you think?
I think when you're sitting in that situation and somebody says they're leaving for their mental health, you have little choice but to support them. And what are you going to say? And anything you said that negative, you'd be a monster. And so, they're obviously really supportive. I thought that maybe that was a bit over the top. I mean, I thought it was, if he was struggling and he needed to leave, by all means, I think, exit the game. The show has mental health professionals behind the scenes that help evaluate that. And, everything I've read says they're not there to try to encourage people to stay, but rather to make sure that they're fit to stay. I sort of felt like they need to adjust the rules somehow. First of all, the rules should state if you're going to quit, you need to do it before or after Tribal, not during. Because I think there's a temptation for somebody to turn the spotlight on themselves and sort of hijack the Tribal, if you will. I don't think this is what Scotty did, but I'm saying it's a potential for somebody to do it. And the other thing is, if there's somebody who's going to go home and you know it, and you really feel like you're in a bad position in the game, you could simply quit to save that person. So I think all of a sudden now quitting could become a strategy, and I don't think that's good for the game.
If only Rob had thought about it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But like I said, I don't. It's a hard thing, because if somebody's struggling, by all means, get them out, get them home, get them help, get them a burger, whatever they need, right?
Yeah. We just watched this with the Olympics just recently. We watched a really similar situation where, somebody who is always sitting in a good position when she competes said, you know what, I can't do it. Yeah. And I know my team needs me, but they need me as a whole person.
Right. So like I said, I think it's interesting. But I do think it affects the game. It affects the calculus of where the tribes are. And I just think if somebody's going to leave the game, it should happen before or after Tribal, but not there. And if it comes out at Tribal in some sort of uncontrolled manner, the minute that is said, Jonathan should stop it. They should go to a one-on-one, and then he should be removed from the group. He shouldn't be allowed to sit there and blow up everyone's game and get hugs and his
Yeah.
torch snuffed. I think, I think it's fine to be empathetic and to, say, it's courageous on TV to admit you have a problem and need to walk away. I'll be the first to say that. But by the same token, bringing him up, snuffing his torch, as though he was voted out with honor in the game isn't really the case. So that's what I got on it anyway.
I'd say that's fair. And it brings in, like you were talking about with his alliance and stuff, it brings in a lot of strange new dynamics, I guess, when you stick around in tribal and let everybody, as you said, bury themselves. And we've got a situation where the middle-aged mafia just keeps attempting a ceasefire within itself. And Mark's out like, no, stabby stab stab. Like it's like they keep trying to fix it, but they're never going to fix it. So we did get to see a little bit of that, and I think this kind of ignited that even more. I don't know. And you got Mark and Val and Winna working together. They all were the ones who wanted to put their, put eyes and ears on Kitty and Caroline. But another notable moment I think we should talk about in this episode, because in a way it does come into play later, is just a really simple moment at the very end of the Don't Skip Leg Day challenge, where we've got it down to Jaden and Winna, and I think Jaden could have hung in there. I personally think Jaden had that game, and he looked over at Winna, and Winna's like, I want it, and he's like, all right, it's yours. And he just dropped it.
I think Jaden's game is trying to be the happy-go-lucky, kind of flying under the radar guy, and by winning, that kind of takes that away. Right now he's got a win under his belt. So I don't think he wanted to win.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, Scott, where would you say that, like, on a high, low, medium, where would you have placed Jaden in your list of gamers?
I before this week, I would have said low. Now maybe medium, although I think some of his tactics that we'll talk about during the course of this vidcast are questionable at best. Also, what he's done on Twitter this week, also questionable at best. Really bad, actually. It's interesting. He's quite a character. Obviously, he could pretty much conquer almost every physical thing. That doesn't involve something being too small for his feet or something.
Yeah,
but
that's a lot of a person to try to hold on those feet.
No, I want to give him. I want to give him credit, or I want him to, and maybe he did it in this at one point this week, where he's just been a vote, and that's how everyone. He's basically the guy being taken for granted. But he's done that to himself. He's basically like, how should I vote? He's not asking for a strategy conversation. He's just like, okay, thanks, whatever. This is the first week we've seen like, oh, there's something going on up there. He might be wrong, but there's still something going on up there.
But nobody wants to vote for him, despite him being the largest physical threat on the tribe. No one's even talking about getting rid of him.
So, do you think it's fair to say Scotty leaves, and now Jaden's sort of rising up and kind of taking Scotty's position in the game, like placement wise, like somewhere right in the middle?
Not really.
Do you feel like he has an allegiance to one side or the other?
No, I don't. I think his strategy is to float between the groups, vote with whoever he has to, and then win out from like 5 on. He probably, if he has a strategy, I think it's, get to 6 and then win all the challenges.
All right. Well, we move into our next episode when we've got Kitty and Caroline upset, because now the writing is in the sand. They knew that they were without Scotty leaving, one of them would not have been there. So we got paranoia is peaking throughout the tribe. We get we get a close up of Alex receiving a ball tap from the rope challenge. I can't unsee it. It's there forever. God, it's just the worst.
Ouch.
Scott, if I know you, and I think I do a little bit. Uh, I'm imagining that you probably in this episode really cued into the dynamic between Kirby and Ree, specifically when Kirby tells Ree, who has immunity, that she needs to do what she wants in terms of whose name she's going to put down. If she's going to put Carolyn's name down, whatever she's going to do. Like at first she tells her, no, I need you to do this. And then she stops and says, no, do whatever you feel like you need to do. And then at the end, when they show the votes, we've got Ree voting for Mark because that's what Ree does. Like, I don't know what the hell.
Mark.
and Kirby doesn't go, oh my God, you betrayed me. Like, it was like, oh, they tricked you. You know, she's like, oh, what's that? They tricked you. Do you feel like do you think Kirby should be telling Ree what to do? What I'm trying to say is, like, is Kirby manipulating her properly? Because I kind of feel like she just needs to tell Ree what to do because I don't think she knows.
Well, Jamie, don't forget what she's clearly trying to do is give Ree agency.
Yes. Ding.
Someone had to say it. Australian Survivor memories of, oh my God, take a shot. They said agency again.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually agree that the bond between Kirby and Ree is, I feel Kirby absolutely could direct her votes if she wanted to, but she's really kind of playing it very lightly with her. But I keep thinking, but you guys have been like together from the get-go. You were separated, now you're back together. She's your true number one. You should be good enough to be able to manipulate her into voting the way you want without it coming off that way. Other people in this tribe have done that with other players. Kirby's been pretty good at certain things. She certainly could. So I feel it was kind of it's been a wasted opportunity for her. I mean, it feels like Kirby's kind of the King's starting to slip away from Kirby, especially since the merge, compared to the way she was just a week earlier, where I thought we were gonna have it's gonna be the clash between Kirby and Carolyn, smashing into one another. Now I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure now. Now it seems like there's multiple factions at this point, and I think if Kirby could have reined in Ray right from the start and really mobilized things, that vote might have gone a little bit differently. So I tend to agree with what you're saying.
Have we ever seen 6511 before? I mean, that was an interesting tribal.
Very odd.
The numbers were really weird, but our alliances are really weird in this season. You notice it's like we start out with two tribes, we merge into one, but we still have this weird 3-group alliance thing that's happening as if we had 3 separate tribes. I mean, Kirby's is down to just her and Ree at this point since they lost Scotty.
Well, see, the thing with Ree and Kirby, I read it as Kirby is seeing them talk to Ree, Carolyn, and Kitty. Yes. And maybe Kirby was feeling a little insecure and she was giving her agency because she wants to see where she really is. Is she coming back to me, or did they get her? Because once you make merge, like after the swap, they've spent as much time with each other with one as the other, right? And sometimes it's
they were separated.
Yes, an old lover is wonderful to think about, but it's the one you're loving right now that matters, right? So, yes. I don't know.
I think it's kind of interesting. How I read it. It's interesting too because you can see especially this week, we didn't get a great vibe check off of Kirby in the first week. I'd say all the conversations I've had separately with each of you, none of us were like, I love Kirby. But this last week, it's like you can see the coach. Do you know what I mean? Like the coach is coming out because she's sitting back and she's not in the game. she's watching the players play the game and she's taking notes and seeing where she needs to coach
She's
who.
like testing them, right? She's just, yeah.
Yeah. Like the ego got set aside and the coach is coming in. I think that's a fantastic move for somebody who was so out front and so certain that she was the queen of the game in the moment.
Well, then kudos to her, because lots of people can't turn that on and off. You know?
No, they can't. So, David, I saved this question for you.
Oh no.
Val's attitude at Tribal and the things that she had to say about Caroline, hot or not?
Oh yeah, absolutely hot. Absolutely hot. I mean, come on. She could literally read a cookbook with that accent and it'd be hot. Let's be honest.
She was definitely
Wow.
adding
You really did like
some
the
spice.
You really did like Natasha, didn't you?
Yeah, the Big Trouble for Moose and Squirrel.
Wow.
It just takes me right
Weirdo.
back to it.
You're so odd. You probably had a side ponytail, that's probably why.
I wish I had a ponytail.
I mean, I think it's pretty. Okay, now I can't unsee that, David. Thank you for you in a side ponytail. As I'm gonna, I'm putting it right back in the same pocket as Alex's ball tap. You are ever going to be stuck right there. That's where you're at with your side
Super.
pony. Okay, Christy. So going into the next episode, I'm bringing this to you because you lost Eden, who was I think was probably your favorite in the whole game, but
that's my
definitely
bro.
not the final three, right?
Absolutely. That's my bro. That's the one person on the show that I could go like, I could hang out with him because we would have so much to talk about. Right. I was like, that's my dude. And he came up with this whole like different, interesting tactic of, hey, let's not hit the big dogs. Let's take out all their seconds and weaken them so that we can then take them out easier. And I thought, that's like not crazy. That's kind of good.
He needs to master the art of taking people aside and having a conversation.
Yes. Do you
doing it in front of
There
people.
we go. Now she's back.
Do you think that from my perspective, I feel like that's where Eden's game went wrong. Like
Absolutely,
I think it wasn't a necessary move.
No, it wasn't.
Also, Eden, I love the guy too. He's great. I want to hang out with him. But somebody who cannot have a conversation that involves lying without taking 60 drinks out of his water bottle.
He's thirsty.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He has such a terrible tell, like Eden's lying because he's doing this. Like
I think here's what happened to Eden, okay? I think Eden is a little bit hyper. Dude, totally relate. Okay, a little bit hyper. And I think that, he was they're in their little tribes, right? And you're like kind of like maneuvering, you kind of know what's going on, you're getting the pieces all under control, you're figuring it all out. And then they do this switchy thing, and I think he got so excited with all the pieces that he had that he came up with a brilliant idea. He thought his idea was key, like he was making some new like whatever for Dragon D&D or something. He's like writing his own script for D&D, and he's like, this is going to be awesome. This is how we're going to do it. And he got a little too excited, and he peaked too early.
He was writing his own fan fiction.
Yeah, I think he was.
You can't do
it
when you're playing the
so
game.
bored. He just wanted to game real hard, and then like didn't go like, oh shoot, wait a minute, this looks really bad. And yeah.
So
he needed to stay in that middle pocket.
Scott, going off of Eden and what we're talking about, Eden, when it came down to the tribal, what do you think was like the final nail in his coffin? Do you think it was Jaden flipping his vote, or do you think it was Caroline and Val admitting to their ceasefire? Like, do you feel that Ferris, let me reword this. Do you feel that Ferris had sniffed out the rat before tribal, like very clearly knew what was going on? Or do you think it was all apparent at tribal when he realized, oh, they wait a minute, they're doing something.
Okay. I'll tackle the Ferris thing first because we all know how many times he repeated, I read you like a book. Read you like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Okay.
That's
By the way,
I don't
accent not
dislike-
hot for him.
I don't dislike Ferris necessarily,
Says you.
but he has shown himself to be a player who is always be riddled by suspicions and a certain level of paranoia. So I believe that was one of the possibilities of the things he was thinking of going into Tribal. I do not think he went into Tribal going, "Oh, I know they're going to do this, and thus I'm going to do that." Now, did he pick up on that, especially when with the ceasefire conversation with Val and Carolyn and so on? Yeah, it probably made it more sure for him. But at the end of the I say it on this one too. At the end of the day, it's Jaden's vote. It's Jaden's vote that knocks him out, and it's the wait a minute. You realize both those guys voted out Winner. It's not. It wasn't just Eden. And you basically and point out that Raymond, who is always aligned so closely with Ferris, even though I know I read some stuff that Winner said in an interview somewhere, but that didn't come through on the show. It looked like it was a Ferris versus Winner a lot on that show. So you should have been trying to hurt the guy that was against your guy for the last few weeks there, but instead you voted out Eden. It didn't make sense to me. So
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Scott?
for sure.
Do you think when he said the read it like a book like 4 times,
Mhm.
I thought it was really arrogant and he was like pounding his chest when I first watched it. But when I think about it, is it possible that it was more he was just relieved that he got it right? Like there was that much doubt in his mind that he was just kind of repeating it,
Not
he
crazy
was like,
paranoid.
I read it like a book.
He's in the corner.
I think it's Ferris trying to cover himself for his previous tribal council antics of just being dumbfounded and stunned and, not giving Garrick the immunity when someone right next to you keeps telling you twice,
Dude.
give it to him. Give it to him. Nah. Oh, I didn't know. I was too shocked. It's like, well, one of the things in Survivor, you got to make decisions on the
selfish.
Yes.
Selfish.
I feel like when it comes to Ferris, you can tell whether he is genuinely shocked and surprised, really was reading you like a book, or is sniffing out the rat in the moment. And the way you can tell with him is his eyes.
How open are they?
They get very large when he is actually shocked or surprised.
Yeah.
When he believes he's sniffing out the rat, that's when he gets the cheeky side eye smile. His face, he has a terrible poker face.
He's a Muppet,
Yes, he absolutely is. And so I kind of feel like the Ferris that we got in this tribal was somebody who had a pretty good idea that something was up, was putting the pieces together, and then just had it confirmed. Like if we're going to do this, but if this is a possibility, we might do it this way. And then Kitty, who she's right, she can't lie, clearly, because I'm sorry, Ray literally said when Mark picked who was going to the barbecue, Ray said, as just joking, as everybody's walking away, like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's gonna have a barbecue, like we're gonna miss out on a barbecue that has Caroline and Val, and they all start laughing, like, yes, that would be hell because these two are so vicious at each other right now. Why they're like, oh, everything's great, everything's fine. Mark was
I feel like Val's more vicious though.
I think Val's more vicious, but I think Carolyn is more stubborn.
Oh, probably. But I think that if having a meal, they could sit there and Caroline could sit there and eat and not have any problem with Val and not make it awkward. I don't think Val could. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
probably a maturity factor.
I would. Well, okay, we got that like little whatever that was with the jacket, with like the Dodgers jacket, right? Like,
And
It wasn't
that's
even
that's
her
neither one of
jacket.
theirs jacket. That's Meathead's jacket.
like that's I just don't take that because
Nathan, right?
that's the only thing I have to keep warm. Oh, I'm not taking it. I'm just wearing it. Well, don't wear it. I'm just wearing it. These two just need to, I don't know, they just need to have it out. But Mark wasn't wrong when he's trying to keep the peace. It's what he's good at. He's getting two opposing sides to meet in the middle. That's where his talents lay. But like where his talents don't lay is realizing when you have that and you have successfully done that, now you need to sit and make a plan before you go back to tribal. Nobody needs to know we're all together. Let's keep it like we are separate. This is how we gain the upper hand. It's happened many times in many seasons of Survivor. Most recently, George and the two girls when they had the day at the spa thing or whatever, like, nope, let's all work together, but we're not going to let anyone know that we're working together. So I would wager that Jaden's move, along with Caroline and Val's incompetent move, created the end to Eden. Because the one thing I will say for Jaden is that when they had to do a revote, say what you will, up until the revote, the other option was going to Rocks. And why would you go to Rocks for either one of them? Because then you have to have a very open discussion, and then everybody has to say where they are, and then Jaden has to openly say where he is, and it's a whole thing. And if they do not come to an agreement, then what happens? Everybody has to draw Rocks, and somebody who is not even in the line of fire could go home.
Oh no, that's a fair. What did you think of Mark's play though, with who he chose to go to the barbecue? Because I thought it was awful.
Did you?
I didn't think it was good play at all. I think he's obsessed with this idea he can bring people together. And I think, he had an opportunity to bring people he wasn't working with or didn't know at all. I mean, he didn't need to bring Val. He had her vote no matter what. There was no reason to bring her. She wasn't starving. He could have brought Ferris. He could have brought Jaden, who was a free agent. Why wasn't he recruiting free agents? Why was he trying to repair the Caroline Val?
Well,
Fisher?
you take Caroline and Kitty. You take Caroline and Kitty so that they're not back there talking to everybody else about you.
I get taking one of them.
So you're right, and I think you take Val because if you do not take her to feed her or whatever, she is going to cut you. She doesn't play.
See, that's it exactly. I don't think you should. That's the thing. You don't need to
explain it. You could explain it to her when you got back. We need allies, and I'm getting them.
But it's Val. It's Val we're talking about. If his alliance member, if his number one alliance member was, okay, let's say Winnow was still in the game, and he chose that he chose not to take Winnow. Winnow would go, oh, okay, because I'm in his alliance. I get that. I'm sad. I'm bummed out, but hopefully he can get a few more people over to our side. And that would be the end of it. But this is Val we're talking about. If he even looks like he's going to cut her loose, she is going to turn on his ass. I do not trust her, period. I wouldn't. That's my take on Val.
I think, I'm going to mildly disagree with David. It's not a strong disagreement, but a mild disagreement. Because when you're choosing who you're going to take on a reward like that, right? It's not simply about who you're taking with you and what you're going to try to do with those people. It's how everyone else is going to react to who you took.
Sure.
And if he had gone about things in a different way, then I feel there's more suspicions going around what he's trying to do. The fact that he took the two people who were clearly in most opposition to each other in over the last day or two, after that, especially after that tribal whatever, and everyone knows he's a negotiator, is what he does, he's a diplomat, whatever. He ends up not looking that bad to the tribe at all because he's trying to do something, as opposed to, oh, look, he's trying to corral forces and he's trying to pick this one and that one. Again, did it work? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They even though obviously Eden still gets ousted, didn't Caroline and Val both vote for the same person? Didn't they vote in conjunction with each other? Didn't he unify those votes together?
Yeah,
He
everybody
was-
worked together. He was successful in that. They were unsuccessful in using that the best way they possibly could.
Right, but you mean,
He did do his job very well.
And nobody voted for him.
But he could have accomplished that just taking Caroline. He didn't need Kitty there as well.
But
Yeah,
that's a
but-
package deal.
Well,
Kitty's a follower. You could see that by now. And I think he had an opportunity to bring on a vote that he didn't have before. And
So
solidify
who
it.
would
And
have
he
been
just-
who would have been the best person if he, let's say he doesn't take Val or he doesn't take Kitty?
in
Who is the
retrospect,
best
Jaden,
person?
obviously. Jaden's your free agent. So he's the guy you can recruit and solidify.
What about Alex? What are you
See,
thinking
I'm
about
not
Alex?
sure what to make of Alex at this point. I don't know where his head is.
I
I'd
feel
rather
like
have Alex on my
right-
side than Jaden.
But the other
I-
thing he could have done is he could have taken Ferris, which would have shook the whole game up and made everybody paranoid.
right, my agreement would be he didn't need to take Kitty. He takes Ferris, but I think Caroline and Val are a package deal. That I thought you had to take those two.
Okay.
I
It's a fair
thought
point, I mean.
I thought he did the classic thing, and he didn't need to do this. He did the classic thing of, and correct me if I'm wrong, if my memory is faulty, I'm old. Wasn't Kitty the person that he beat? Like, wasn't it was between him and her when he won the
Yes.
the reward? A lot of times when they win, they'll pick the person that they just who
Yeah.
you duked it out with at the very end, kind of like, okay, you came in second, but you get to come along with me. Did he have to do that? No. So I do agree, but I think he fell into that trap because that's such a common thing. It's like, oh, I got to take the person that who came so close.
Well, you know what they just went through because right, you just did it like 1 second longer.
right.
Yes, yes, exactly. So when you're talking about this competition, specifically, we're talking about the Isuzu competition. So David, you've watched all the seasons. I don't think the rest of us have, but you have watched all the seasons. What does Mark winning this reward mean for his game?
He's gone. The curse
Sixth
of the car.
Place curse.
Yep.
Everybody who wins this reward goes out at 6. We've got Danny, Jordy, and Simon all out at 6th place after winning the Isuzu. Maybe he can break the curse. I don't
Maybe he
know.
can, given that
he
he's
was
like
my-
Mr.
he's-
Goodwill
he's-
now.
As you know, he was my winner picking at least one other person's, right?
Christie's, yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure anymore. If I could, I'm not sure. I think he's been a heck of a waste of potential this entire game. I don't think he's playing anywhere near the best game on.
I think if he teams up with the right people,
Yes.
and he seems he's going
They're
to be
not
fine.
partnering with the right
But-
people.
As you had
But-
said earlier, David, boy, we had disagree on so many things. You said earlier that you'd be trying to snatch up Jaden. No, Jaden is not. He's like with the breeze. He's not going to be loyal to you or anybody. So I think you got to get rid of Jaden. Get
It
rid of
feels-
Jaden. You pick up Alex. I think
It
Alex
feels
will be
doesn't,
loyal.
really-
Jaden
it feels
doesn't hurt
really-
you though.
It feels really dirty for me to say
Yeah,
the
but you
word.
can't predict what he's going to do.
I think Alex is a more dependable alliance member than Jaden.
Oh, I don't see
I-
that at all.
You know
Really,
things, but
he loves a meathead boy.
yeah, he's a boy's boy for sure.
He is. He was over there. Oh, captain of the football team. You're a cool dude.
Well,
So
yeah,
all of this talking about like Mark and our
We love you,
winners pick.
David.
My winners pick is gone. Not a huge shocker. I've still got Val in the game. I still have Mark in the game, but I lost Winna.
We've all lost one, right?
We've all
Right.
Now,
So that's
Scott,
fair.
Scott, what are your? I know you're coming in on this a little bit, like with a little bit more information than we had when we did our pick. But where's your standing with players? What's your overall view of this season thus far?
See, I don't know if you guys I know you do it for the U.S. Survivor. I don't know if you did it for the Australian Survivor, where you checked out, their bios or interviews or anything like that ahead of time. I choose not to do that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't do that.
I don't want to be, and I wouldn't, and I won't, and I wouldn't do it for U.S. Survivor either, because I'm not, because I need to see one episode. That means I'm going to sacrifice one player. I need to see one episode because I don't care how someone talks in an interview. The minute they're on that island is how they're going to be, not how they talked in an interview.
Mhm.
First
Excellent
episode,
point.
my first episode. When I watched the first episode, I was like, I thought Mark and Eden, because a lot of times in your final three, there's always two that are aligned together. And then there's the question, who's the mastermind, who's the follower, whatever. It always feels like there's two that are like closely aligned together, and then the third one is someone outside of that. And I was torn between Eileen and Kitty. And I ultimately thought Eileen, because Kitty was still part of that the middle-aged mafia line, and I didn't think all three people would make it from there. I thought Eileen was going to be a bit under the radar. She seemed kind of smart, and people would start shooting after like Ferris and other people outside of her, and she might just eke on by. She might not get one damn vote, but I thought she would be the third person. So I've lost Eden. Here's the thing with Mark. If Mark, who is a diplomat, a negotiator, he's a persuader. If he could have done one thing, the entire game changes. And he didn't do it. And that's derailed him for the most part for the rest of the game. He should have convinced V, no, I told you, Carol, it's not time to go after Caroline now. And he gave in to her, and that's disrupted his game from that point on. And if
she still has revenge. That's all she's got.
But that doesn't happen if he just says, no, it's not the time for it. We have all the time in the world to get rid of her because she's not going to be winning immunities.
She's not winning anything.
And do you think she's really out there digging for an idol either? No. We don't have to get rid of her now. We can wait on her.
She has to follow every single person around and listen to their conversations. So she's not digging any idols.
And from that point on,
perfect.
And from that point on, and then the whole revenge thing, which is never a good idea. And I was just like, oh God.
The revenge thing clouds their judgment so much. And that was the other thing I was going to say about Jaden. Is that so? He goes after Eden, like you said. There were two people that you could have voted the other way too. They both, but Eden was the one that was recognizing, ooh, he's playing this game. So he's the one who probably would have given him the most cred for
except for the fact that if that's what Jaden is thinking is, ooh, this guy's got me figured out and realized I'm playing and he needs to go.
Well,
nah.
Listen, I did my research on this because I needed to know how someone who we all view is basically an expert, right? If there's an expert in playing this version of the game, I think we can all agree that George is in very high standing in that position.
All hail King George.
Okay.
George did
nice.
Bring up something about Eden. He loves Eden. But he made a really excellent point and saying that Eden did make a mistake with Jaden because he wasn't just, oh, this guy needs to get more involved and play the game. He let Jaden know that he thought he wasn't playing the game and that he didn't know what he was doing. And this is how you do this. And he said, it is one thing when you have somebody like that who's not a really huge fan, somebody who doesn't completely understand all the ins and outs of this game, and you do not protect them from that idea of you don't know what you're doing, they'll come after you. And he said everybody underestimated Jerry his entire season, but he was always there with Jerry, always listened to Jerry, always protected the fact that, and gladly gave him information without making it seem like you're
not
an idiot.
So fast there, Jerry.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Best line ever.
And so Jerry became his absolute most loyal alliance member. There were so many opportunities that Jerry's game maybe could have gone further or not by voting him out, but he never did. It was he got loyalty, and Eden failed in getting loyalty.
That's a good point.
I mean, what the brilliance of the episode overall is that we have the entire episode of him doing this very over the top mentorship of Jaden, and then by the end, Jaden, and the way they cut that together at the end. That's what I'm talking about. With that might be the nicest piece of editing I've seen in any Survivor episode, where you wait until and you have like the voice drop, the mic, the torch drop, whatever you want to call it. Here's what's funny. I wish either Eden could have either taken a page from Mark's book, or maybe even instilled Mark to do this, because Mark could have done that a lot more subtly and a lot more low key. It's everything you just said, and obviously what George said, of course, is absolutely on the mark. It's like going, no, like you're hammering it a bit too much here, dude, because that's why I think that's why he ended up voting you. He's like, oh yeah. That combined with the winner thing, like, oh yeah, that's what you think I am? Bang, Should I have
probably, but that's not how Eden meant it. Eden was literally, he seemed excited. He seemed like, as a fan, like, oh, I'm excited. This guy's finally playing.
I don't think he meant it in any sort of.
He's just excited because he's dateable now. That's all.
That was a great line.
With his porn stash and everything.
I love this.
His name should be Winna.
Okay, so now traditionally at this point in the podcast, we go through Jonathan's final words that he's got on the end of each episode, and historically they have been amazing. Sometimes this season they've just, they're all right. But here they are. I'm going to lay them out, and then a show of hands, which one which is the best here. Okay, so we've got. Hold on, let me grab it there. We have got our first one. There we go. I got my screen changed. Okay. If we have learned anything about the game tonight, it's that you should always put yourself first. That's 1. 2. We've got, some of you have found a perfect match tonight. Question is, what will become of the brokenhearted? And 3, looks like the war between the Titans and the Rebels is back. So show of hands, which ones do you think? 1, 2, or 3?
I think 1.
All right, 2 it is. 2 wins.
Okay.
I actually texted that to you guys. What will become?
I wondered what that was. I'm going to be honest with you at first, because I hadn't watched the episode, and then I saw that winner. For a second, I thought it was a slight. I thought it was a slight at me and my winner's pick going home.
You were being a jerk.
You ass! How dare you?
She thought I was being a what? A dirty dog.
A dirty dog. Well, I did. In our chat, I did drop some fouler words when Eden got voted. So fair.
Sometimes it hurts. Overall,
so mad.
There's a few players this season that I can root for a little bit more over the next, but not by much. I kind of feel like I think Val is creeping. She's in my 3, but I think she's creeping into a little bit of a villainy. But I don't know. I don't love.
Oh no, she'll never be able to play U.S. Survivor.
I don't love. Jeff's the only damn villain allowed on that island, and you know it. I don't. I'm enjoying this season, but I am not in love with this season like I was, of course, last year and even the year before that. But it's still Australia's Survivor.
Do you think though that's the danger of all new players? I mean, the last two seasons were players we all knew.
Yes.
Who wasn't excited to see George play again?
Now that's something that I do find interesting about Kirby, is because Kirby is a first time player, and she's not a really huge fan of the game, but she understands competition and she understands strategy. So it's like she's coming in almost like she's a two-time player, because it's like she's already watched the tapes and taken the notes. So she's really interesting that way. Ferris, for all of his showboating, he is an excellent. He has an excellent capability of feeling that something is not right. Like he's got a great lie detector.
He has a very finely attuned bullshit detector.
Yes.
And just the right amount of healthy paranoia. You know what I mean?
Well, he might have a little too much of that. Maybe.
No, I think so far it's been. He hasn't gone off on anyone overly being paranoid.
I'm not gonna lie. I really do enjoy when he starts to get a little paranoid, and we get that shot where he jumps up from wherever he's standing or sitting and walks to the jungle and starts pacing. I love it.
But
I wish he wasn't as
trying not to yell at anybody.
Yeah,
he's my guy
he's a little cartoon
grown on me. Mm-hmm. He's grown on me. I didn't like him at all at the beginning, and I like him better. I find myself rooting for him over Kirby, for instance, and certainly over.
Yeah, I don't want Kirby to beat him. I want him to beat Kirby when they had that they were going head to head.
And I think if you went to our first episode, I was pretty sure he was Simon and needed to go immediately.
Oh yeah, you always have to pick somebody that you hate right off the bat.
Right, and
it's usually someone who has long hair. Oh, Jamie, we cracked the code.
It's always somebody that has hair as a big part of their personality. Always. David, I read you like a book. Read you like a book, mate.
I don't buy that.
Oh, okay.
I can refute that.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's go back and look at the pictures of Cameron, Christian, Ferris, Ricard. Yeah.
I liked Ricard.
You did
not at first. You didn't,
but you did not at first.
Not at first.
I like me some Shan too. They were a good team.
Yep. But okay, all right, guys. So we're gonna narrow this down. So we have got a little bit of a schedule flippy flop going on next week. I think we may be recording on Tuesday rather than Thursday. We will drop the time and the place on Tally the Votes on our Facebook page, Tally the Votes, as soon as we know it. You can also like and subscribe, and then you will get that information straight off the bat, and you do not have to wonder. You can join us in the chat. You can send us an email. I don't even know if our email is still active. David, give him the email.
I can't find it.
All right, it's not active anymore. Nobody uses email. It's fine.
It's Tally the Votes. CH.
I found it. There it is.
There you go.
Scott, it has been awesome having you here and talking Survivor on a recorded situation. I mean, we talk Survivor here and there throughout the years.
Where we're behaving ourselves.
When we're behaving ourselves. But it's been great to have you on here. I would wager we might see you again probably right around finale time. But before then, where can people find you?
Oh, cool. I am the host of, as mentioned earlier, of 2 different podcasts. You can find pretty much on most podcast platforms at this point. One is Scott Forgot the 80s. Just recorded an episode with Jamie about the film Flight of the Navigator. The thing to always remember, my name is spelled with 1 T. If you put in 2 T's, you're not going to find it. And there's no apostrophe in 80s because that's just not right. And I'm the longtime host.
This doesn't belong to them.
I'm the longtime host of the Serious TV Drama Podcast, or the STVD podcast. You can pretty much find that anywhere. Haven't recorded one of those in a while. Hasn't been any TV I've wanted to talk about in a while, so we'll see. But yeah, you can
except for Australia Survivor, right?
Find our pages on Facebook. You can find us on X, Twitter, blah 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 blah. Yeah, find us everywhere.
All right,
and I'm a huge fan of the Serious TV podcast. I mean, I got to say one thing about it: they are thorough. You know, that podcast.
Never a stone unturned.
Unspoken.
a stone unturned or a query not
No,
questioned.
so everyone knows I tease Scott sometimes about the length of his podcast, but they're always
But you
very
know
good,
what?
and I always listen to
You know
them.
what?
So who am I?
I'm used to people having weird reactions to size issues for me, so it's okay, David. You're just agitated.
They're always
Good
taken
one.
aback. Now, Christy, other than in my dreams,
know
where
how we
can
got
we
there.
find you?
Just right here, talking about reality TV with my buddies, on the Facebook, I guess, over in the Tally the Votes Facebook group, and that's really it. Because I don't
She
tweet
doesn't do
X.
the
I
media.
don't. You know what? Because my life is much happier without a lot of excessive
I think
things
that's
coming
fair.
in. So yeah,
I think that's fair.
life's hard out
See,
there.
Scott,
It
she
really
doesn't
is.
need the excess. That's what she just said.
You know what?
David.
I don't X or
You can always-
tweet.
You can always find room.
David, where are you
Gosh.
hanging out when you're not here, chatting about Australia?
Well, I hang out on the Australian Survivor fan pages and start arguments.
Oh yeah.
Which is always
You're
fun.
going to find him there. He's there and he's right. You're going to find him.
Although I have to say, this year has been much calmer than last year. There was some dude that I must have tangled with on George, and I mean, I was writing like whole novels about the season last year.
Wow.
It was quite a thing. I have
See?
not done that this year.
I just did like 5 or 6 tweets in a row about this season this week. Actually, if you haven't read them yet, you should check them out. They're pretty good. I should have read them on should have read them on your vidcast. It would have been even better.
Ah,
Read them out. Okay, I'm going to be doing the U.S. Survivor podcast over at the Jay and Jack whole enchilada feed. And then we do, one of these vidcasts on the Jay and Jack. Look for the red icon. That's the one you'll find me at. And I'm going to be bebopping between Fiji and Samoa, earning my frequent flyer, miles over the next month. It's a lot. But
at least
whatever.
it won't be hard figuring out which one you're talking about, because there's a good one and then there's.
You've got a very clear,
American one.
defined difference between the competition and the host and the production. And
This is the time of the year where it's so blatantly obvious how different the two shows are, because you're watching them in the same week. It's hard.
There's so much I want to say.
I watched your podcast last night, Jamie, and then I watched the preview one today, and the most delicious moment was watching your co-host pick Jelinski as his final three.
It was so great.
Delicious. I just ate it with a fork and a knife.
It was really great when we got to the point where the spreadsheet section of the podcast and him having to admit, like, I just lost my winner's pick. It was great. It was good. And I think that it brings up an excellent point that we were talking about earlier, and Scott was mentioning what you get in an interview is not always what you get in the game, because that man had a fantastic interview.
And is he Russian? Is he of Russian descent?
He's Russian to get off the show, apparently.
Well, there's that.
Did you
But
I just wondered
today.
Well,
no, I did not.
He's learned nothing. He still thinks he played beautifully.
Oh well, that's
the other
sweet.
guy quit first.
That's what he says.
I don't know.
I gloom the task on Twitter. It's like, really? Do you really believe that? Come on.
Do you want to know the most upsetting thing for me was, and David's going to understand this because David is the guy who watches these interviews along with me, is that in every single one of Mike Bloom's interviews, he would ask them, is there anybody here that you're vibing on or you have an idea about? Because they're not allowed to speak with each other while they're there for that 2 week
before they start.
Yeah. And all of them practically mentioned this same guy. They were like, there's this guy with this beard and he's got this like really like wild hair. And some people were like, I get a really bad vibe off of him. And
some people
like,
really liked him.
Yeah, they're like, I'm
Wanted to
so
work with him.
intrigued. I want to talk to this guy. I want to know more about this guy. And this guy is not on the season. So that means he was the alternate. And all I want is to see that alternate
Just put
on
a
next
picture
season.
out there.
Because
Or can we find him on Twitter? Or there's some sleuths out there. Someone will figure out who it was.
we want to know who it was. Austin was an
Jamie.
alternate, and he came really close to the end of the game last season.
Before we wrap up, we've got to talk about the Shannon Twitter Jaden thing. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I did not get all of the info on this, so I'm gonna let you guys take, because I know Scott, you mentioned it too. I'm gonna let you take the helm on that.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, Scoop, let's go.
So Scott, go ahead and start it. If
Dave,
you
you
want to frame
you
it.
brought it up, David. You follow through. Sure.
Yeah, as everybody knows, Shannon and Mike do their podcast, and Shannon's been doing Australian Survivor for years. Just watched U.S. Survivor for the first time last
Yep.
season. Is by all accounts a lovely, likable person who, unlike me, doesn't say offensive things about the contestants. And
Typically.
really is generally not a very controversial person. And Jaden just lit into her for some very mild criticism she levied about his game. And the end result is she's been getting absolutely attacked by Jaden fans on Instagram and on Twitter.
Well, I can tell you that is a surefire way to never get to be on RHAP.
No.
Like,
But what
What are you
did
doing,
they think
Ross?
she said that was so over the top, just so mean to
Scott, I
Jaden?
was unclear
Like
on
he can't pick up,
what he was
stick
so
up for
upset
himself.
about. Did you?
I don't know what I couldn't tell what the hell it was that she said that was that bad.
the only thing I've seen her talk
It was
about,
kind of like a lack of strategy, kind of.
the only thing I've seen her talk about is that like they did the bit where he was saying like he's in the game and now he's playing the game and he's been playing the game, and she's like, no, he's not playing the game. Like you could mention any name to him and he'd be like, yeah, all right, brah. And like
Yeah.
that's it. That's what he's there for. And that's all I've seen and she's not entirely wrong.
So that's the thing, is he can think anything he wants, but we are seeing something else, and he had to watch that. So you can't get mad at us for thinking what we think when that's what they're showing us, dude. Right? Oh, that's sad.
And the Twitter
There's
thing
a-
escalated even further because then Mike Bloom tried to come to her defense.
Yeah.
And what he said,
Uh-oh.
and then
Uh-oh.
some people were saying what he was doing, and this was totally not true. Because he was kind of calling out Jaden for mobilizing his people to really
Yeah.
go after her.
To doxers or whatever.
Then people felt what Bloom was doing was the same thing, which I don't think it was. So then
I don't either.
I'm going to delete this. Like, wow. And it's funny because I'm the guy who, for the last several weeks, I keep making little comments about, I always do it in, quotation marks, the survivor experts. Because
right.
I often do not. I mean, I like Shannon. I like her. I think she's very informative. I don't necessarily agree with her half the time, and I've had a little back and forth once or twice, whatever. But this is so way over the line. It's insane. And
Yeah,
Here,
it's not a debate.
I'll read you the Jaden tweet. I just found it. At Shannon,
Okay.
guys, you are the biggest hater. Please just remember you dedicate your life to a game you've never played. It's easy to talk while sitting on the couch where you belong. You are a spectator and that's all you'll ever be.
Nah. Oh man.
We get it, dude. She said no. That's what it sounds like. Doesn't it? That's what it sounds like.
You. Oh my god.
God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I will tell you.
I told you he was creepy, Jamie. I told you he was creepy.
I'll tell
And
you.
then he took her picture and he superimposed it on a really heavy man in like a frumpy t-shirt sitting on the couch. And it says, professional basketball player misses free throw. Me, meaning Shannon, what a fucking idiot. It's the
I'm sorry,
silliest
is he
meme I've ever
related
seen.
to? Is he related to the Hans brothers? Like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly going to go down with that sort of history.
Oh,
because-
dude, that's so disappointing. That's, it's not that he was
I
one of
knew
my
it.
favorite players, but it's so disappointing because when you've got people like Shannon, you got people like Shannon, you got people like Mike Bloom. I mean, we love the game. We enjoy coming together and talking about the game, but like, I think it's fair to say that we all like highly respect the people that do this for a living, that they might know a thing or two, whether they played the game or not, but they also know that it's different to play the game than to talk about the game. They're
Yeah, duh.
not naive to this. And okay, if you
Wow.
don't like one of the people reporting on it and you don't agree with them, that's fine, and you can have a civil discourse about it. But to outwardly like attack somebody who is a part of the, I don't like to use the word institution, but the institution of
Or
reality
the fandom.
But she
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody any more kind than she is
No.
generally. I
No.
mean, you know, as a matter of fact, I think sometimes she goes out of her way
And-
not to criticize.
and Mike also is a solid human being,
Yeah, he is.
you know.
He did
Do you
really
think-
well on those on the U.S. interviews, by the way.
Do
absolutely did
you
a
think
fantastic job.
that because Jaden is not a watcher of the show, right? He doesn't really know, and he's looking at, so he's starting to hear some blowback that his game wasn't
Yep.
great, and she just happened to be the one that he was talking to at the moment that it was like
Well, I think
You know,
that whereas
he unleashed or something.
I think
It's
whereas
not her,
here
dude. She didn't do it.
in the U.S., I would say that the biggest name, as far as that job goes, in that world, the biggest name is probably Rob Cesternino, without a doubt.
Sure.
Yeah.
But in
absolutely.
Australia-
he's a former player, so he'll
Right.
he's more likely to get a buy for it.
I think that in Australia, it's Shannon.
Oh, there's no question.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you aren't in that, if you aren't knowledgeable, if you aren't a fan that's actually, listen to these interviews and watch them over the years talk about players, sure, you step out of the limelight. It's one thing to be on an island and have cameras there. It's another thing when you face mass criticism or congratulations in every media outlet. It's a lot. I think psychologically, it's probably just nuts for the first year out of these games. So yes, absolutely, that could definitely be a thing. But you know what? He is not the first and the only person that's ever gotten an ounce of criticism on his game, and he
Right.
chose to be nuts about
And
it.
her criticism was very mild. She was talking about something Eden said and said he couldn't handle it. That was her criticism. I mean, it wasn't like he played stupidly, like I would say,
Yeah,
for example.
Well,
Well,
not
I knew he was a
everybody-
creepy guy.
Not everybody is a good sport, and that's it. That's
But
the,
he does look like a Disney character. I can't remember the Disney character's name, but he looks just like
it really does. Yeah, it's definitely
Which one?
like Maui, maybe. Is it Maui? It's all
From Moana?
triangle
I was going to say,
on
okay.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the guy with the
Triangle on
tattoos
top
his
with the
chest.
tats. Yep.
Mr. Samoa, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, it makes me root for him far less, but oh well.
Me
Oh,
neither.
Me neither.
I don't like him.
All right, guys. I think we've spent everything we've got. We'll see you next week. We'll drop a line and let you know when it's coming up. It will be on Tuesday. We'll give you the time when we got it. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out.
So long.
Bye.